Alrighty, welcome everyone to this month's community meeting of owasp-dependency-track. As always, for the organizational part, the community meetings are being recorded and they will be uploaded to YouTube with a slight delay. The slides will be published to our community repository on GitHub. And if you have questions during this presentation, I would kindly ask you to use the Zoom chat, and we will get to the questions after the main part of the presentation. There will be an open Q&A section towards the end where you can ask participants or me or the rest of the team questions. That's what that section is for. Agenda for today, pretty quick one, actually. That is just the version 5 update and the Q&A. But the version 5 update is, of course, the meat of it all. So, regarding the cutover status, if you watched the last community meeting or you participated in the last community meeting, you will have seen that we were laying out our plan as to how the version 5 cutover would proceed. And I will just give you a quick update as to how that went and where we are in that process. We have first announced the cutover via readme.md files. There's a special migration file or v5_migration that is in the front-end repositories and the API server repositories. We have started a GitHub discussion and pinned it in the main dependency track repository, and we have announced this via Slack. Following that announcement, we have effectively frozen the master branch for version 4. We have migrated all the code from the previously codenamed project Hades, which is now version 5. We migrated that code over to the main repository. So now when you visit the dependency track main repository or the front end repository, you will see version 5 code. Since then, we have released 4 release candidate versions in the new repositories. The last one is just an hour old, I think. I just released it. And we have addressed multiple issues and feedback from users already on the release candidate versions. The biggest part here is the final release is planned for this week, unless asterisk something comes up that is a big bug or that needs handling ASAP before the GA release. But this week, the GA release will happen unless something breaks, of course. One thing to know for you, as you are probably watching the repository or watching our communication, the release will probably happen or most likely happen before there's an official announcement or like the usual marketing stuff, right? And that has just to do with how we distribute our resources. We cannot do everything together. So release will happen first and then the communication most likely. Here's just an example. If you visit the dependency track repository now, you will see something like this. There will be a warning that says this current state of the repository represents version 5. Version 5 is not yet GA. Please use the RC versions. And if you want the production version, for the moment, keep using version 4, right? And then there are also prominent links as to where the version 4 code is in case you need to raise a bug fix or PR that is meant for version 4. The documentation for version 4 is linked, and of course, like the migration guide. And the note that version 4 will be supported up to 6 months after version 5 becomes GA. Just evidence that we archived the repositories for Hades, so no more issues can be raised, no more PRs can be raised, no more commits can be made. Same thing goes for the Docker Hub repositories, so you can still pull the images, you can still download the code if you want to. But there will be no new versions going forward for these repositories. Also last time, we mentioned that there will be upgrade tooling or migration tooling. If you're currently using version 4, there will be a migration necessary. And last time we said we were working on it, but it's not yet released. So stay tuned. Now it is released. And not only is there tooling, there is a migration guide that is a step-by-step instruction, what you need to do, what you need to prepare, what to expect after the migration. So we really hope this is useful. There's also a specific separate tutorial for you. If you are too paranoid running this, like running the Big Bang migration all at once, you can first test it out in a local sandbox. So the commitment you have to do for this is quite low, I would say. So even though this is not an in-place migration that would make things easy, I guess, from the user perspective, we still try to make it as approachable as possible and as low risk as possible. The entire, like how this migration works is documented in the guide that I just showed. It's in the on the documentation page. But just to give you an idea, how it works is that you keep using, or you have your version 4 database, and then you create a new Postgres database. Can be physical, like a physical separate database server, or a logical database in your existing Postgres instance. You create a separate instance for version 5. And in that, we or our migration tooling creates two schemas, one for what we call staging and one for the final version 5 schema. What then happens is that we first extract the data as is from version 4 in the new staging schema. Then we run transformations on that data so it fits the new version 5 shape. And after that, we load that data into the final version 5 schema. And after that, you just start up version 5 and it will possibly run some more database migrations. But after that, it should be smooth sailing. The reason we did it this way is because it's quite literally the easiest way to move lots of data around, right? The final step from the staging schema to the final schema just happens inside the target Postgres database. Also, this is safe to do and safe to repeat over and over again. The only precondition here, in any case, is that you, during the extract phase, during the first step here, you stop your version 4 instance just because you do not want it to make updates to the data while you are extracting it, right? So you stop your version 4 instance, you do the extraction, then you can start the version 4 instance again if you need to keep it online for whatever reason. And then the rest is just offline and you can repeat the steps. You run every single step explicitly, and you can even reset if the load step, so step 3 in this case, fails. So yeah, it's safe to run, I would say. A few constraints for this. You will need the version 4 instance to be on version 4.14.2 or later. The or later is just like a safety net here because version 4.14.2 is currently the latest version. And this supports Microsoft SQL and PostgreSQL source databases. As I mentioned, the migration is not in place, but it's also not destructive, so safe to repeat. There are also dry run modes and sampling modes, so you can test the entire pipeline with just a few or a limited set of rows, if you will. So you can get a feeling for, do the connections work all right? Does the extraction happen as expected? So this is all covered, and it should all contribute to this being safe to run again. Still, please follow the guide. It is there for a reason. And don't YOLO this, right? Don't just fire the tool at your database and hope everything goes well. If you run into issues, and a few people have tested this already and they have found issues, please raise them on GitHub. We are very keen to fix them. Of course, we tested this locally extensively. We have an automated test suite as well. But just because some instances have been around for a few years, it is hard to predict what kind of data they have accumulated. So it gets hard to predict what data to expect. So if you find issues, again, just raise them and we will be happy to fix them. That being said, we totally expect this to be, or we totally expect fixes to be necessary after the GA release. And there's like our release model, if you will, kind of handles that. So if we have to do bug fixes after the GA release, that's totally fine. Yeah, that's all on that front. There is the topic of the Helm chart, and I know many people are deploying Dependency-Track to Kubernetes using the official Helm chart. So one important thing here for you to know is that the official Helm chart currently is not yet version 5 compatible. What we have done so far is we have released version 1.0.0. Previously, this was versioned as 0.something.0. So now there's a stable release that is version 4 compatible. And if we need to make bug fixes that have to work with Dependency-Track version 4, we will do it on the Helm chart version 1 branch, if you will. We will also add a check, I will probably do that later today, to the version 1 chart such that it fails fast if you try to use it with Dependency-Track version 5. So when it detects you use an image tag for version 5, it will just fail before it deploys anything. And that's just a safety net, right? Because not everyone will read the upgrade notes or whatever. The Dependency-Track version 5 compatible chart will be then released as a new major version of the chart, in this case as version 2.0.0. And just like the application upgrade itself, the chart upgrade is also not automatic. So you probably need to install the version 5 or the version 2 chart in this case separately, and you cannot just upgrade. We will, of course, put warnings and upgrade notes in prominent places, so hopefully everyone will see them. And the Hades chart that currently exists next to the Dependency-Track chart, again, Hades was the project name for version 5. This will be discontinued because we are merging this back into the main Dependency-Track chart. The new chart version will thus probably arrive after version 5 is GA, and that again has to do with how we distribute resources. We cannot work on everything concurrently, sadly. So there will be a slight delay for the Helm chart. But the good news is this chart will then support the new web and worker split. So you can scale the worker nodes and the web nodes separately if you want. There's even auto-scaling support that we will bake in. So that is one of the reasons why it is not just a simple upgrade between the new versions, between the version 4 and the version 5 chart. We will probably also, just like for the application itself, we will ship RC releases, so you can still deploy them, but please don't use them in production yet. And please give us feedback if the release candidate versions are published. As for what you can do right now, possibly even before the GA release happens, make sure your version 4 instances are upgraded to version 4.14.2, as I mentioned before. That is the minimum version that you can use for the migration. You can please test the RC releases. They are on GitHub. One thing to note here, if you're not familiar with it, is when you open a repository and there's this releases section on the side, it will only show the stable releases. So at the moment, the latest release is labeled as 4.14.2. You need to click on the releases section in the repository, and then it will show you the pre-releases where you will find the version 5 RC releases. But here are also links that you can click when the slides are published. Again, as I mentioned before, there's a tutorial where you can test the migration in a local sandbox. Please do that so we can identify if there are any issues with your particular setup and fix them if they are fixable. Also, if you're planning to upgrade, which I think you should, plan and prepare the infrastructure for the new version 5 deployment. And we do have a deployment to production guide where all the requirements are listed, where there's a rough sizing guide. At least we document what you should have at very least. What kind of resources you need exactly very much depends on your workload. So we don't have specific numbers, but testing will give you the correct numbers, of course. Also, if you're a user of the Helm chart, keep an eye out on the releases on that repository, but we will also communicate that via GitHub discussions probably and via the Slack channel as always. A note for the early adopters who used earlier versions of previously Hades, now version 5. Again, only applies to you. The data migration that I mentioned earlier from version 4 to version 5, of course, does not apply to you. You don't have to run this. What you should do instead is follow the upgrade notes or the upgrade guides in the documentation, where you can, where we list what you have to do between the versions leading up to the GA release to upgrade to the next version, sorry. And we have lots of guides for this already at the moment, leading up to version release candidate 2. Yeah, and that's pretty much all for today. I guess the rest will be releasing the GA release this week. Do we have any questions or concerns? I guess silence is a no.
I would just like to give Nicholas, yourself, the rest of the contributors, everyone who's submitted an issue or a pull request, a huge thank you and congratulations early on this monumental release. I know this is a couple of years in the making, so this is a big deal, and we're going to try to push on this from the OWASP side to make this as big of an announcement as possible. So again, I know it's a little early, but by the time people are actually watching the video, GA should likely be out there. So huge congratulations to you and the rest of the team.
Thank you so much. Definitely. Yep. Alrighty. I think then we're good. I guess we will see us at the GA release announcement. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Bye bye.